Nina, welcome back to the Queer Divorce Club.
Thanks so much, Tara. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you today about co-parenting. So we had such a great conversation about collaborative divorce and, how to get through a divorce, as parents or not in our last episode. And I really thought it would be awesome to talk to you today just about co-parenting and see where we can go with that conversation.
Absolutely. Co-parenting is so important um, before and after divorce.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right. That's
No,
one of the tough things, right? Is if you're getting divorced because you have trouble communicating or,
right.
whatever, and you maybe aren't parenting great together while married, it's sometimes being divorced can help you parent together better, but also then it adds these other obstacles for communication. So there's
Yeah.
this added layer.
Yeah. I mean, my top thing that I do want to say about it is put your children first.
Yeah.
Put them above any conflicts that you're having. Put them first the way you did when they were born, if you had them when they were born. But even if you
Mm.
didn't, yeah.
Put your children first. Okay, we'll keep that as an overriding theme throughout. And I think you're right. It is so important. And when you think about what your children's needs are, um, over time, and those can evolve, putting them first
They
really helps you
totally
make.
evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they didn't have a say in this.
Right. Right. There's that
They don't
part.
have a say in much. So,
No. And they probably
yeah,
feel so out of control when you go through divorce. They feel like you're right. They have no choice. Their life's being upended. And
yeah,
so their grief is just a lot different and it's just hard. It's hard for
yeah,
kiddos.
yeah.
Um, in on that basic level too of, putting your kids first, what would you say, start us off by giving a little bit of information on what are the benefits of developing a strong co-parenting relationship with your ex?
So, everything, so many
Yeah.
benefits.
Mhm.
It's not easy for many people. For some people, it's easier than others. But, like you said, when you're having conflict with your ex, it's hard to talk about anything. But putting the children first and really creating with them a strong co-parenting relationship, if you possibly can, really just protects the children and helps them accept the divorce, helps them move forward, it helps them with their feelings, it helps them with their lives. I mean, you're making so many decisions that affect their lives, and they can get through this, but the better that you can co-parent and the less that you can expose them to conflict, the better they do.
Yeah, the kids need to see their parents be a team through this, and that can look in many different ways, and we'll talk about
Yeah,
that in
yeah,
a little bit. But yeah, kids need to know they have a secure, supportive grounding, at least at one of their houses, right?
right. And
Hmm.
and that's actually something that I want to kind of lean on also about this, is that you don't have control over the other house.
Yeah.
So just make it your house. Make your house really great for your kids. And by great, I don't mean give them everything they want. I mean healthy and nurturing and with appropriate discipline and appropriate boundaries and structure and all the things that you think that the other person should be doing. Just do it yourself, even if they're not doing it.
How do
And if they
you,
are, that's great.
yeah, how do you stop yourself from not wanting to control the other house?
That's where
Been there.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is where the whole like take care of yourself is so important. Get support from friends, from therapists, from family, whoever you can get support from, and just focus on you. Focus on you and your child, because you can make decisions about how to communicate with your child's other parent or parents, and those decisions are really important as well and can have a big impact. Um, but what you do is the main thing that you have control over.
Yeah. So if in those situations where maybe the other house or your ex is not, you're not able to communicate at all, either maybe it was abusive relationship or you really have toxic communication, co-parenting looks a little bit different, right? So what would you say to somebody who isn't able, like you're just saying, you have your house to maintain, but what about the communication with the other parent?
There's something called BIF, brief, informative, firm, and I forget what the last step is, but basically like keep your communications brief and informative. Be firm and direct and clear, and don't expect anything from the other person. You do your part, and that's all you can do, and create the best environment that you can for your child. And even if you aren't hearing good things from the other person or anything, or they're angry or whatever it is that you're getting back from the other parents, you continue to do your brief and informative and firm. Like you just keep it there,
Mm-hmm.
and don't get hooked into that. Right. That's why
Into
you're
the,
not together, so you don't have to
yeah,
get hooked.
you don't have to get hooked
Mm,
into the conflict, into the toxic space anymore. That's
exactly.
the benefit of it.
Exactly. You don't
Okay.
have to explain yourself a lot. That's where the
Mhm.
brief thing comes in, that I think a lot of times people think that they're going to convince the other parent to be different.
Yeah.
And that's really unlikely. So, I would just let go of all the convincing stuff and just say your piece very briefly.
Yeah. Would you say it's probably, I know you're not a divorce researcher, but would you say it's more common than not that parents co-parent like in their communication and logistics and make big decisions for their kids together, but often run separate households after getting divorced? Like it's more common than not that you are going to parent way less together after you're divorced.
Yeah, I think
Then
that's true. I mean, I think that one thing is that usually the people that we're attracted to are very different from us.
yeah.
Like that's the opposites attract thing is really true. So when
Hmm.
you met this person and you decide to have children with them, or what, however that went, usually there's somebody that's quite different from you. So maybe you're very structured and they're very loose.
Hmm.
Maybe you're very more disciplined and they're more give in. Maybe they just see things different. There's not a right and wrong to those things. So moving yourself off the right and wrong and just saying, okay, this is the way I am. This is what I think works best. That's fine. Then you just do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I run across that in my day to day where both of my partners and I's kiddos have a lot more screen time at their dad's house, and they have a lot more um, kind of structured their home a lot more at their dad's house. And at our house, they are, we go outside more, we have less screen time, and often we have push and pull from them, like, dad lets us watch TV, dad lets us stay up late. That's a
Mhm.
common a common thing. And I just keep saying to them, like,
Yeah.
your whole life is the whole month, your time at your dad's, your time here. Sometimes
Mhm.
experiences can be different at each house, and you get some outdoor time here and you get indoor time there. And, you know,
Perfect.
yeah, I think they have
Yeah.
to
You're
find
so
that
lucky you
balance.
get both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish they saw it that way.
Yeah. They probably don't, but
Yeah.
they might, they
Hmm.
might think, oh, good, I'm going to dad's. I get to play the video game, whatever. I
Hmm.
mean, they also might say, I'm going to mom's and I'm gonna, get to go for a hike,
Yeah.
or, or whatever. So, and also kids are different. Some kids want to be outside and some kids are more indoor kids.
Hmm.
And you provide what you provide. There's not a right and wrong about that.
Ooh, It's a good way to think about it because I think often, because kids in the push and pull, or just talking about my kids in this space, they'll sometimes use that against me. Like they're frustrated with me, like, well, dad lets me watch TV and you don't, let me
Mhm.
do that. And so then I take on that guilt as a mom and be like, well, am I doing the wrong thing? Should I let them be doing video games? And I'm like, no, I have to think about what I want for them as values, for their kid, as an adult, what I want them to have in their lives, what I want them to build, and still focus on that. It's really not always rewarding day to day. They're yelling at you.
With or without divorce. Yeah, kids aren't
Yes.
always rewarding
Yes.
day to day.
It's
But one thing that I would just say that it sounds like you're doing right, which is really great, is just being very matter of fact about it. Where they're
yeah.
like, yeah, dad lets me da da da. Like, yeah, he does. And here it's like this,
Mm,
and it's just what it is. You don't have to defend it. Um, there's, kids are gonna play you against each other even when you're together,
yeah, that's true. They
and
play,
especially as they get
yeah,
older.
yeah. That's true. They play us against, like, my partner and I against each other in the same house. And,
Exactly.
once they started settling into her as a bonus mom, they were like, okay, Carly, can I have this? Tara, can I have this? And then, yeah, Carly,
Yep.
yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah, I was just hearing
Hmm.
a story
Hmm.
about, the kid, this probably happens all the time. The kid that goes to, one parent's house and says, the other parent said I could blah, 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 and then goes to the other parent and says, the other parent said I could.
Oh,
So then they get both parents to think that the other parent agreed with it.
mm,
And I don't think that's uncommon.
yeah,
Kids are smart. It's actually a sign of intelligence, in my opinion.
right. They know
Like
how to
they
use their
figure it out.
resources. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
manipulate it. Manipulative, we use manipulative as a pejorative, but it's not. It's
Right.
like you're trying to get what you want and you think you need, or whatever that may be.
Right.
It's
It's a
just that
natural,
kids don't really know as much as adults do.
right. It's a natural survival technique, right? They're
It
making it
is.
through the world.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with
Hmm.
it. You just want to try to catch them if you can.
Yeah.
And so the better communication that you have with the other parents, the easier it is to say, dad said I could go on this trip with my friend and no parents. And you say, well, let me talk to your dad about
Yeah. Yeah.
that. I'm going to have a little conversation with him and then I'll get
Hmm.
back to you.
Yeah.
And that's
Always
also one
confirm.
of the things that I really think is hard for all parents, but really helpful is don't answer right away. Like it's okay when a kid says, can I blah, 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 for you to say, yeah, get back to you on that.
Okay.
And then you can think about it, get your support,
Hmm.
figure out what you want to say about it, possibly talk to the other parent if that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Sometimes just a quick text saying, did you say blah, blah, blah? You know, the parent can be like, yes, I did, or no, I didn't. I mean,
Right.
that's easy.
Easy enough. What do you think are the basics? Like, as we're talking about this scenario, I could see how that comes up a lot. It comes up for us, and I frequently am texting back and forth with my ex day to day about drop offs and pickups and stuff. So our kiddos know that we are in communication. So even trying to pull that, they know
That
we're
helps.
talking. So it's like, okay.
Yeah.
But what do you think are the basic? So if our relationship is strained,
Hmm.
what are the basic things that we should be talking about our kids on a regular basis outside of the schedule?
Oh,
I know.
um, so many things that could
Hmm.
come up, and I think that would be the biggest thing is like I noticed this, or the teacher told me that, or
Hmm.
friend's parent mentioned this, or just different anything about your child. You do want to communicate to the other parent,
Yeah. So
and
confirming
you
if
want to
a
do it without blaming them, without
right.
saying, really like this isn't on you. I just wanted you to know.
Yeah.
Um, Even if you think it is on them,
Right.
take that out of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Keep it
there
brief.
are a lot of parents, just to say nuts and bolts, a lot of parents use Google Docs, where they have a shared doc where they can write stuff, and Google Calendar, where they can put the calendar, especially if you have more than one child. It
Hmm.
can get complicated. The pickups and drop offs, and oh, this one has
Hmm.
soccer and that one has guitar lessons, and whatever, this homework or whatever that may be. And so having a shared calendar, there's some apps for that too. There's My Family Wizard is an app that you can get that you just helps you, also helps you take out anything that's pejorative or blaming, or anything like that, and keep it just really super factual,
Hmm.
which is usually a good key. Is like you have a tendency to want to explain or to blame or to say, did you blah blah blah, because that went really terrible, or
Hmm.
and those things are just not going to help your co-parenting.
Yeah.
That's a
And
big.
then I think there's also the uh sorry, I just take a break for coughing.
I thought that was
Okay.
going to be me.
I know, no, I'm coughing.
It's still could be me.
Mhm. Me too.
So yeah, one way to do that also is, especially if you are going to write a text or an email or something, is to write it first and then look at it.
Hmm.
Don't write it on your phone where you could accidentally send it before you review it. And just write it on a piece of paper, and you write it with all the blame in it, and then take it out.
Yeah, my therapist actually just told me about this website that helps you take the blame out of your text. I need to put that up and put it in the show notes. So write all the nasty thing in this website, and then it'll pop out more kindly. Like
That's
that's
great.
perfect. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
way
that really is great.
to move through it and
Yeah,
not put the blame out there and cause more emotion that's going to get in the way of actually getting what you need for your kiddos.
right. Just
Yeah.
remember also how you feel when you get blamed. Like,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. So day to day when you're communicating too, you mentioned that it's good to get updates about what's happening with your kids, right? So like
Right.
I recently had one of our kiddos was having some really high emotion times and he's having trouble in school. And so for him, he was so exhausted. He was working really hard to get through this, his reading and working through it. And so at the end of the day, he was just be exhausted and like throw these big fits. So I texted my ex and said, have you noticed this from him too? And he confirmed that yes, he was. And so it was able to give me some information on what I could do to help him. And so that was good to even just check on that very basic thing.
That's actually really
Yeah.
hard.
It is hard.
Yeah,
It is hard.
it's really hard.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I was thinking about when I think about, like, how do you co-parent, is how different your children can be, and that you might have one child that's very emotional and
Hmm.
expressive, and you might have another child that keeps it all to themselves
Yeah.
and they're quiet about it, but that doesn't mean that they're not having feelings.
Right.
And
Right.
maybe they don't know how to talk about their feelings and they need more space for that.
Hmm.
Just kind of like the indoor outdoor kid. I would just work with a couple not too long ago, and one of their children was very athletic and out on the soccer field and with friends and very social, and the other child liked to be alone and draw and do stuff in her room. And so it's accepting them the way they are, but also giving them the space to say, yeah, this is hard,
Yeah.
especially early on in the divorce, and for a while, where you
Yeah.
can go to them and say, you know, hey, honey, I know this is hard.
Yeah. And you might have to check in with each kid differently, right? Like show up for them
Exactly.
as they need it.
Right.
Yeah.
One of them might be yelling at you and being all like hard and,
Hmm.
you know, acting acting angry, and the other one may be more sad, and keeping an eye on them also, so that if that sadness gets too extreme, or you hear them say that they're going to hurt themselves, or they say little things like, it'd be better if I wasn't even here, or that you really pick up on that stuff and get them help.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that's helped us, considering this, we have three very different kiddos, is that we have a therapist for each of our kids. And actually our two youngest have the same therapist, but she sees them at different times. And that's helped us a ton, being able to talk through their relationship, being able for her to see the dynamics of our family as a whole and support the kids through it. And that's been a very healthy process
Yeah,
for them,
that's
I
really
think.
great.
Yeah.
And yes, some parents, some kids, some siblings have the close relationship and they talk about it, and
Yeah.
some don't because they're just kind of different, and
Hmm.
they don't really support each, they don't know how, maybe, or they don't, whatever the reason is, they
Yeah.
don't support each other as much.
And parenting is hard. As
It
you're talking
is. It's
about it,
hard.
just
And then
thinking
I'm
about
just
it.
thinking of the age ranges too,
Yeah.
how different it is if
Hmm.
you have a baby
Right.
and you're trying to co-parent, a 1 year old or a 6 month old
Hmm.
versus a teenager. I mean, it's just a completely different story.
Yeah. Seriously.
So
we have a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old, and even that age difference is a huge
totally.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Preteens
very
are
different.
so different than young
Hmm.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like what we've saying so far is that you communicate about each kid, look at each kiddo as an individual, see where they're at, and then be brave with your ex to ask about what's happening day to day with kiddos.
Hmm.
Um, be okay with it, be emotionless, and don't blame. I think I'm following. I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
And
know if
some things to,
emotionless is the right word,
yeah,
but
I know.
yeah,
Yeah,
like just
yeah,
try to keep it matter of fact. That's
yeah.
how I would think of it. And you can say things to your the other parent like, um, is there anything that you've noticed lately that I should know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, give them the credit also of being an observant, like amazing parent. Like just act as if they are, even if you don't think they are,
Yeah.
and be able to say like, I know you're close to, our daughter or son and or where, and have you been noticing anything? That might be a
Mm-hmm.
way of saying it.
Yeah. Give them credit and expect that everybody's doing their best, or at least trying to do
Yeah,
their best through it. That's true.
yeah.
So when couples are starting the divorce process, how do you help them through the initial steps of like figuring out how to co-parent in the best way? Like what things should we be thinking about at the beginning of the process?
Well, a lot of times at the beginning of the process, there is a lot of nuts and bolts about scheduling.
Mhm.
And also, people are confused about how much to tell the other parent,
Yeah.
which is not always the same for every couple.
Hmm.
So some parents may want more information, and some parents, let's streamline this. Um, just not wanting so much, I don't know, interaction, I guess. Um, so sort of figuring that out about each other and being able to try to make it work for the other parent in some ways as well. Again, putting your child first. So you making it work for the other parent is not giving yourself up or hurting you. It's just trying to make it work for the child,
Yeah.
or children. So I think that's a big part of the beginning stuff, and just also at the beginning, the children are probably struggling more. So really keeping an eye on that and being able to say something about that if it needs to be said to the other parent. Um, One thing, so I'm working with a couple right now. One thing that's been really hard is that one of the parents was much more emotional about the divorce and was crying all the time.
Hmm.
And so the children have a reaction to that. They want to
Yeah.
protect that parent, they want to take care of that parent. And so they do so by rejecting the other parent a lot of times,
Yeah.
or at least in some ways, rejecting the other parent.
Hmm.
So being able to accept that that's happening without somehow blaming that other parent who's also doing the best they can.
Yeah.
They're not trying to cry in front of the kids. They're trying not to,
Hmm.
but the kids are smart and they pick up on it. So being able to, let the children say what they need to say, listening to them, continuing to be there for them, even if you're getting rejecting messages and they don't want to see you, saying, well, I'm going to be here. And you're going to, working to get both parents to support the other parent.
Yeah.
I think that can just be really hard at the beginning because
Yeah.
people are so angry and upset, and um, they are, a lot of times they are blaming
Yeah.
in their own mind, in their own heart, and they may or may not say that to the kids, but the kids feel it.
Yeah. Kids know. They always know.
They do.
I'm always like, how do they know? Well, they were in the house with you when it happened. It's not like
Yeah.
they see it all. That's
And they
true.
know you
Hmm.
so well.
Yeah.
They know what all your facial expressions mean. They know, they've been watching you since they were born.
Hmm.
You're the main people in their lives for so very long. If you think about it, till they're, going to maybe kindergarten, even if they go to preschool, they're with you so much
Yeah.
and they watch you and their survival depends on you.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things we experienced pretty consistently with our kiddos is that they had gone through COVID, and during COVID times, we spent a lot of family time together. And so
Mhm.
their consistent norm was their nuclear family. they're being together. And so the transition was, again, very, even more difficult. Like, I'm not seeing that parent or this parent, or, they understood, that people could get sick and people could die. And so there was all these other emotions that were in there, and that was very difficult to
Yeah.
transition through that.
And kids at this point have all gone through that. I mean,
Yeah,
unless they're babies,
right.
they pretty much have all gone through that. And, it's something we don't have a lot of experience with. We never had a pandemic like that in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, there's just so many external things like that. And we just have to do our best.
Yeah. You were just talking a bit ago too about like staying and listening to your kids and showing that you're showing up. Um, I think for most parents, there's going to be some need to heal the relationship with your kid through this process, right? So they trusted you in this space, that you were their family, it was always going to be that way. And so no matter how well you go through the process with them, you break down their relationship a bit, right? They trust you in different ways, or they see things differently, or, there might be some stress, or like you were saying, they might be blaming one of the parents over the other. How do you work with, as a parent, do your best to continue to heal that space with your kiddos? There's hope on the other end, right? Like, if you're working on it, maybe I just
Yeah,
need you to tell me there's hope.
there's totally hope.
Yeah.
There's totally hope.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things that are kind of age related in that arena. Like for instance, kids once they're 5, even maybe from 5 to 15, I would say something like that. I don't know. It depends on the kid. They
Hmm.
blame themselves,
Yeah.
and that's a really hard piece. And you have to you have to tell them like a lot of times, even though that doesn't really change it for them, like it's words, but you can, keep letting them know that it's not about them. And, one thing that I hadn't thought about so much that someone had brought to my attention is that a lot of times they might have heard you fighting about them,
Right.
because we do fight about our kids. We do argue like, oh, you let them have all that screen time. Like, oh my God, you let them have that candy. Oh, you didn't let them, or whatever it may be. Um, and so that just adds more, that's something that's already happened. That when you were fighting about them, you didn't even know you were going to get divorced. At least you may not have known, or you
Right.
may not have known from the beginning. Um, and so they take that on as a responsibility, that it's about them, and sometimes they try to act out so that you'll come together and help them
Mm.
if they're in
Hmm.
trouble.
Yeah.
And sometimes they just can handle it different ways. Sometimes they just get really sad and hold themselves back from achieving. Sometimes they're the perfect child, so that you'll come together and they won't be causing you problems anymore. Um, so so that's one piece. That's for a pretty long time of their childhood. At In the middle of their childhood, and especially, everything's about them.
Yeah.
That's just a normal developmental stage, is that it's all about them. So this is too. Um, and I just think that hearing them, spending time with them, reminding them that it's not their fault, that you don't blame them, you don't think it's their fault, that it was a grown-up decision and it was about grown-up relationship,
Hmm.
and that this happens sometimes. And maybe they know other people that where their parents have gotten divorced, and you're just keep reminding them you're both going to love them, you're both going to be their parents forever, and in a way you're still going to be family, in a different configuration. That's how I like to think of it, that the family is changing its configuration, it's changing its shape and what it looks like, but you're all still going to be family.
Yeah. And that family can look like just being able to go to a parent teacher conference together, or even just checking in over text. Family can be connected in that way. It doesn't have to be, it
Yes.
can be, spending holidays and birthdays and stuff together. It could be also just texting, and your family can look like, whatever
Yeah.
it's supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing, this is something that I also think about a lot, is that for queer families, I think that it's easier, that there is a tradition. I don't know if tradition is the right word, but there's a history of of queer families staying close and staying and being best friends with their exes and having it's a family of choice, families of choice that include all kinds of different relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, I think for queer families getting divorced, that transition, although like you said at first, can be really rough because everybody's upset and mad and you know hurt, all that's happening. It's all churned up.
Mm-hmm.
But that after a little while, a lot of times the family does come back together again in a new configuration, and there's love there.
Yeah. Would you say that time period at the beginning? I think I have quite a few friends and people in the group that are going through that first part, and we talk a lot about the messy middle. I feel like that's this time
Yeah.
later in the healing for yourself, but there's also this time right at the beginning where it just feels like more of a crisis, and it's really
Yes.
hard to come back together. It's hard to, set your future co-parenting goals through that. It's hard to like be friends through that part.
Right.
Would you say that can, I feel like for us, maybe it was 2 years sort of not full crisis, but being able to settle into our new spaces. And then we could talk to each other more about, we'd talk about the kids and put them first, very minimum. But it seems like that took us that amount of time to even get to the next step, right? To get to the next step of being able to think more about, what else we need to, talk
I
about, what
think
else we
that's
need for the
really
kids.
variable,
Yeah.
and for some people it comes quicker, and for
Hmm.
some people it's longer. And, I don't exactly know what that depends on, probably everything.
Yeah.
Um, but to envision that that's going to be a possibility in the future is helpful,
Yeah.
if that's possible to envision. And for some people at the beginning, it's not even possible to envision. So then I would say if the next choice would be, can you envision a civil relationship with that person and that you could somehow honor them as a parent?
Yeah.
And and even if, you know, so there's a program here called Kids Turn. I don't know if they have that everywhere, but it's a program where um, the kids come and meet with a group of their peers, their same age group, basically, little age range, and talk about divorce and
Hmm.
have a chance to talk about it with other kids who are getting divorced or are whose families have either gotten divorced or somewhere in that process. And then the parents also come and they each go to a different group, so there's two parent groups for one parents and then for the other parent, um, and talk about how to manage all of this stuff
Yeah.
and reduce the conflict and stuff. And we had I will long time ago, I worked for them, and it was a parent group where one of the parents was in prison and the other parent was here, and how do you and was working on how to let the child know that even though that parent is in jail or is in prison, um, they still love you and they're
Yeah.
still your parent and they still really you're important to them, like no matter what the situation is, my point.
Yeah.
um, that we can talk about that they have a sickness, if they have addiction maybe, or if they have mental illness, we can talk about that they have a sickness, but that they still love you and that they always will. So, so no matter how terrible that other parent is or may be or may have been or whatever may have happened, we still build them up to the child in
Y-
terms of that they the child still means a lot to them.
Yeah. Do you think that that's developmentally for the kiddo? The important part is knowing that they're loved,
Yes.
and yeah,
Yeah, at every
yeah.
age, at every age.
I still feel like that's for me now.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah,
and for
that's true.
adult children, it's true too. And there is like
Hmm.
this whole, there's a book called Gray Divorce, and the person, writes about adult children. And it can be hard for adult children because now
Yeah.
you have, grandparents that don't get along and, or maybe you're a young adult and, You want them at your graduation or your marriage or your children's birth or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
And they may or may not be able to manage that together. And I guess, that my hope is that you can find a way to manage it together.
Yeah. I think it's
And if,
important, yeah, to be able to. I feel like my parents got divorced when I was 8 or 9. So it was in the, early 90s. It was, divorce wasn't as prevalent as it is now, or at least the supportive culture around divorce. So, and I feel like I remember my parents were not in the same room again after that until I graduated from high school. And then when I got married, essentially. So there's
yeah,
like this, or when I graduated from college, I think they were there together too. But I even had 2 graduation parties for high school. Like we did barely anything together.
they couldn't do it even then.
They couldn't even
So
do
it's
it
like 10
then.
years
Yeah.
later or 8 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Hmm.
Um, but it's also just the way it is sometimes.
Yeah.
And so to be able to say, okay, let's just have two separate parties.
Yeah.
Let's just have two separate parties and we'll just honor each other having that.
Yeah.
That's okay. Like people have two separate birthdays, they have two
Hmm.
separate holidays sometimes, and it's okay if you can do it with um, respect
Yeah.
for the other person. I
Yeah.
mean, it might still be sad for the child, but they still have both. You still have both your parents love you.
Right. Right.
They just didn't want to be together.
Right. Yeah, the hard parts are when the parents are fighting, when they're disrespecting each other in front of the kids, when they're using the kids using to go through the kids against each other.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
100% don't do that. So that's like also
Hmm.
really basic. Do
Yeah.
not use the kids as messengers.
Hmm.
Don't say to the child, well, especially till they're older teenagers. I think if they're older teenagers, they have more say about their scheduling and what's happening with that, and they may speak to each parent on their own about that. But until that point, um, make those arrangements out of earshot. If they're really like civil and comfortable, then fine. Then fine, the kids can hear or whatever. But if
Yeah.
there's any kind of tension, any type of disagreement, any type of arguing, no, don't do that in front of the children. It's bad
Mm.
for them. It hurts them.
Yeah.
Don't talk about money. Do not talk about money in front of your
Hmm.
children. And that's like your child support, any type of spousal support, even any worries that just worries about money are not great for kids to hear because they don't feel safe. They don't feel protected.
Yeah.
You really want them to feel, if possible, that they're going to just be okay and they're going to be taken care of. And that's the main thing that you want to be able to convey to them. Now, if you are listening to this and you are going to be homeless and living in your car with your child, they're going to know that.
Yeah.
They don't need to hear you say, "Oh my God, I'm so worried. This is going to be terrible," or whatever. Like, they're already going to know. Um, so just, be hopeful and optimistic with them. Say, we're going to get it together. It's going to be okay. And I'm never going to let anything happen to you, and I'm going to take care of you. So even in the worst circumstances, you want to give them the impression, hopefully a truthful impression, that you're going to take care of them no matter what.
Right. Like you're trying, you're moving forward, you're keeping their security as much as you can.
Right. And
Yeah.
if they need to live with their aunt for a while or something like that because you're in your car and just, or whatever, or you're in a tent or whatever your situation may be, um, then you still give them that positive. Say, you know what, your Aunt Sally's going to be taking care of you for a while until I get on my feet. And as soon as I do, you're going to be living with me again. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, I'm going to see you as much as I can. And, we're going to make this work. So
Yeah.
you just want to be as positive as you can with them. It's not that they won't know the reality.
Right. Right. But
But
you're
if
there to offer
you're,
security.
yes, that's your
Yeah.
job. And if
Hmm.
your support checks are late or whatever, don't talk about that in front of them. They don't need to hear that. They want you, they, your job is also to convey that the other parent is doing the best they can and is also um, committed to protecting them and taking care of them.
Yeah. What about moments when you're feeling really emotional? I know I've had so many, and there's been a couple times where I've slipped up and yelled at the kids or had these moments. Um,
Yeah,
we
it
talk about
happens.
repair a lot, right? So
Yeah, it
repair is the
happens.
important part. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
you can, depending again on your children's age, you can say to them, you come back to them later and just say, look, I'm having a hard time. That doesn't mean you need to have a hard time. I
Mhm.
don't want you to have a hard time, and I'm getting support and I'm getting what I need to get it together. It's not your job to fix it for me. No, it's not your job to make me feel better, but just knowing that you're alive makes me feel better. Like just um, letting them know that you're getting what you need and you're taking care of yourself, which is also super important, especially at the beginning. That very beginning part, getting as much support as you can, because that's the time when it's most likely that your emotions are going to be out of control,
Yeah.
that you're going to be sadder and angrier and, just flaring up inside in different ways. And you can't always keep that from them. You do your best, but you can't always. But it'd be better if you could share it with a therapist or a family member or a friend or someone who's a support to you outside of earshot of the children,
Right. Yeah. And that's important for them to not think that they have to take care of you through any of that.
which
Right.
they will.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
will think that.
Yeah. I think that's a go-to. I've seen it
Hmm.
in my kids, friends' kids, any moment where you see it when you like are just crying about, maybe somebody passed in your family and the kiddo will
Hmm.
come up and try to comfort you. And I think it's natural to comfort, but then it's
Yeah,
also
it's
say, "Thank
great.
you
It's a
for
good sign
supporting
about them.
me. Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
glad that you're being empathetic and we can get through this together. Want you to know though that I'm, getting the help I need and I'm going to get through this and we'll get through it
Hmm.
together."
And it's
That sort
okay
of
to be
stuff, right?
sad.
Yeah.
And, sadness is usually about loss,
Mhm.
and they're going through loss, and you're going
Mhm.
through loss. So, it's fair.
Yeah.
And you can say, yeah, I'm really sad, and I know you are too, and we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
We can
I
be
think I know
sad.
one of the things that I often do as I go through just thinking about this is I always thought maybe if I just say the right thing, it's going to fix it for them or they won't be sad
Yeah.
anymore. Like I just, feeling so guilty about them feeling bad or having to go through this and just wanting to fix it for them. And then if
Yeah.
I try to fix it, it actually makes it worse.
It's not going to be good.
What? It
Yeah.
doesn't work. It doesn't work.
No, but also if
Yeah.
you could become appreciative of their sadness instead,
Yeah.
to where you're like, yeah, I want them to be able to feel sad. That's such a
Yeah.
human, important thing.
Mhm.
And if they didn't feel sad, wouldn't that be weird?
Yeah.
Like, we don't want that. We don't want them to be automatons. We don't want
Mhm.
them to not have feelings. We want them to be human and to experience their grief, their sadness, their anger. We want them to experience all of the human emotions
Yeah.
and be able to express them. That's amazing if they can.
Right.
And not everyone can.
Yeah, that's the goal. I always think about my kids like if 20 years from now they're sitting at work in a meeting, do I want them to be able to say what they're feeling or do I want them in relationships later to be able to say what they're feeling? On the,
Right.
just thinking about that, always setting it
And
up from the beginning.
and that's the problem with fixing it. And I'm drawn to
Yeah.
fixing it too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a normal pull to you want your kids to not have any problems and never have
Mhm.
any trouble. But what we really want is we want them to feel accepted in their grief. Like we want them to know they we want them to know that we think they can handle it
Yeah.
and that we have faith in them that their sadness isn't going to break them.
Right. It's like giving them the gift that they can trust themselves. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, that's a gift I always wanted, right? Working on now as an adult, like, can I trust myself? Can I trust myself through this? And that's where a lot of guilt comes from. And yeah, teach our
Yeah.
kids to
So
trust it.
let's talk about guilt just for a minute
Okay.
because I think guilt does impact us, whether we're the person that called it and said, I want the divorce, or whether there were maybe we cheated, or maybe we did something, whatever it may be,
Mm-hmm.
to mess things up in our relationship, or maybe we didn't, but we just feel guilty anyway. Um, we really want to try to get the support that we need to get through that guilt so that it's not, it doesn't impact the children where we're like, oh, they can have anything they want and do anything they want because I feel guilty.
Yeah.
So, I don't really want them to have no structure and no boundaries and no discipline because I feel so guilty.
Yeah.
And that happens. Sadly, that happens. That sometimes we feel so guilty that we can't set limits.
Yeah. What happens to a kiddo if they don't have limits, if they're getting whatever they want, if they don't feel like they have safe boundaries?
So then they don't feel safe, actually. The
Yeah.
boundaries and limits help kids feel safe.
Okay.
Sometimes they can start to feel very entitled and they think they can do anything they want anywhere.
Yeah.
But really, kids on purpose, without knowing it, or I shouldn't say on purpose, but developmentally, let's say, they do push the boundaries from the minute they're two when they start saying no, right?
Right.
So they're, as soon as they get language, or even before that, they they say no and they push the boundaries because they need to know where they are. They need to feel the boundaries. So if you
Yeah.
don't have any limits and boundaries for them, they feel out of control and scared.
Yeah.
And they may not show that to you, especially if they're older children. It may seem like they want nothing but freedom. But as we know about one thing that we know, like for instance, about adolescence is, you know, that there's a famous book. It says something, it's something like get out of my life, but first, can you take me to the mall?
Yeah.
There's a push pull. There's that
Mhm.
push pull of like, they need you, but they don't want to need you. They wish
Right.
they didn't need you, but they do still really need you.
Mhm.
And that goes on into young adulthood, where they're starting to need you less and less and in different ways. They
Yeah.
don't need you to take them to the mall anymore, but they still need to call you and say, what do I do about my insurance? Or I never done my taxes. What do I do? Or, just many different things, right? So they call
Yeah.
you about those things, hopefully. And the way that I learned is to try to transition, especially in older, as adolescence goes on, from manager to a consultant. So
Okay.
you're starting out in the early days and you're managing their lives, but as they get older, hopefully they're coming to you and say, hey, what do I do about this?
Yeah.
Someone said this to me. Now I felt really terrible. Like, it could be emotional things, could be social things, it could be um how do I vote? I don't know. Like, it could be a million different things.
Yeah.
But you want them to be able to, and if you can help them make that transition and you can make that transition, then hopefully they will come to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think I think thinking about the age of my kiddos, it seems like you could be a consultant relatively early. Like even the 7-year-olds feel like they do need some management of their lives, where should they go? Should they play
Oh,
basketball and 3 sports at a time, like that sort of stuff. But they do come to you like so and so hit me, or I'm having this conflict with my brother, or I'm having this struggle with my dad. Then your
mhm.
job is to listen, right? To sit and listen and offer
It's
advice
so
if they
hard,
want it.
right? It's so
Yes.
hard. I know. And my son was, I don't know, in elementary school. I don't know what age, maybe 8 or something. And he was having a problem with this kid in school. And every day he would tell me about it. Like, it'd be like every day I'd pick him up and he'd be like, Julian, Julian, Julian. And I'd be like giving him ideas and being like, trying to fix it. Right. And
Mhm.
one day he just turned to me and he was like, can you just listen? And I'm like, yeah, that's my job. And I'm like, yeah, that's, out of the mouths of
Mhm.
babes, right? They tell you
Yeah.
what they need.
Mhm.
And, even as a therapist that I spend my whole day listening, I pick up my kid and I want to fix it.
Yeah.
So I just, want to normalize that. Like, that is what happens. And we have to catch ourselves and pull back.
Mhm.
And especially if it's a problem with the other parent. It'd be amazing if they could come to you and say, I'm having a problem with my other parent. This is what it
Yeah.
is. and you could listen and not try to fix it and not take a stand and not
Mm-hmm.
get involved in it. No.
Yeah. So as we're talking, I'm thinking, through what all we've talked about. So there's definitely the importance of co-parenting is thinking about communication, how you're
Yeah.
communicating, how often you're communicating, making sure that, if it is tense to use the BIF analogy,
Oh
keep it
yeah, I
brief,
remembered what the
informational.
other F was.
You remembered.
Friendly.
Great. Friendly. Okay.
Friendly.
Friendly.
Mhm.
Good. So brief, informative,
Firm
formative,
and friendly.
firm and friendly. Okay,
Hmm.
informative and formative are the same thing. Okay, so brief, informative, firm, and friendly. I like that.
Hmm.
Make sure that you are sitting with your kids, listening to your kids, treating them each as individuals,
Hmm.
helping them support them through the process, um, and watch out for your guilt. Right, that's one of the other ones. Make sure
Yeah.
you're, not letting your guilt give them whatever they want, and avoiding boundaries, and keeping that
Be
safety
brave.
secure for them, and be
Hmm.
brave.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do as a parent to get through all of this?
Oh, it's not easy, huh?
What do
Being a
you-
parent's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Divorced or not, it is
Mhm.
hard. And, what I would just say is like get support for yourself and
Yeah.
just keep taking good care of yourself so that you have something to give.
Yeah.
Because if we get depleted, that's when we snap and do things that we regret.
Yeah. It's really true to put your oxygen mask on first on planes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And take time. Like again, try not to, when you can, try not to respond impulsively, to be able to take something in and sit with it for a minute and make a decision on how you want to respond.
Yeah.
Easier said than done. I know. We're not always going to do it. And then we just forgive ourselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes we apologize to the child, sometimes we don't, depending on what it is, but we forgive ourselves because we have to be human
Yeah.
and it's hard. Another thing I did want to say that actually relates to you and because you have three children is
Yeah.
it's really great if you can find some time to spend with each of them individually.
Yeah.
Finding a way, that a lot of times you're together as a family, you're together, but it's also really nice if, once a month or once every couple months, you just have a date with one of your children by
Mm-hmm.
themselves.
Yeah.
And then you get to hear maybe different things or get a different take on them, or it's just special. It just makes each of them feel special.
Yeah. And do you think that the frequency of that is, the kiddos don't necessarily need that every single time you see them or every week,
No.
but that you can, yeah, do that every few months or once a month?
Yeah, whatever
Yeah.
you can arrange,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be great. I mean, it's like mostly you're going to be together, I would assume.
Yeah.
Sometimes if they're really different ages, it's kind of not together as much. But yeah, I would say it would be best to be together mostly, but then, either every month or every couple months or however often you can swing it
Mm-hmm.
to try to see them a little bit by themselves. Sometimes those times occur naturally also because you're shuttling people around and
Mm-hmm.
you pick up one child and you have a long drive or something before you take them to their next thing, and that counts too
Yeah.
as time alone with them.
Yeah. I know I've been thinking about that again. It does feel like you're adding intentionality to your day all the time as a parent. But recently we had a kiddo where I was picking up two of them. I would pick up from school and have these like 15 to 30-minute time periods where I was only with that kiddo. And then there was one that was never getting that. And I could tell that for him, it felt much more stressed over time. Like, I'm not getting seen. I'm not getting my
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
and it was just basically because I was getting the pickup time for one, both of the other
yeah.
kiddos at different times. Yeah, it's
Although
pretty
I have to
amazing.
say, like putting yourself in their shoes, like if I got to spend special time with one of my parents, just me, that was kind of amazing and different than the pickup.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
right, like if we went ice skating or we
Mhm.
went, to do something
Right.
or, bicycle ride or just, I don't know, those are things we did, but um, whatever that may be.
Yeah. And it could also be a fun and intentional time for you to play with your kids and see them
Yeah.
as individual humans and forget about the stress of divorce and talking through things and life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really
And,
good.
it's whatever your kid like put yourself in
Mhm.
your kid's shoes. Like, what do they like? Maybe they want to just draw or play a
Yeah.
game or, whatever their personality is.
Yeah. Get in their shoes, go play some
Get in the,
Minecraft if you need to.
yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I
Mhm.
told my son not too long ago, actually, and he's 26. I'm like, can you teach me how to play your game?
Mhm.
Because I don't even know how to play video games.
Yeah.
You know,
He probably
and
loved that.
he probably didn't do it though.
Oh, no.
He did show me the game though. Like he
Okay, okay,
did.
okay.
He did show me the game. Like he was playing whatever, some
Mhm.
game.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did show it to me. Maybe he loved it. I don't know. But
Yeah.
it felt good.
Yeah.
Felt
I
good
think
to me anyway.
yeah, I think that's important. I think I was just listening to the podcast We Can Do Hard Things, and Carrie Washington was on there, and she was talking about her parents, and she kept saying, I want them to be a supporting player in my life. And that's been ringing true in my head. I
Yeah.
think as we end the podcast on that, I think that's, what you're saying is be there for your kiddos, get into their lives, see what they need. It's hard when you have multiple of them because you have to do it for each kid, but that's what they need to
Yeah.
get through this, right? That's what they need to
Yeah.
be amazing humans, whether you're getting divorced or not.
Yeah. And you're being a role model for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That you can get through a hard thing too.
it's true. Believe in yourself too. That's the other part of it.
That's the
Yeah,
bottom line,
yeah,
really, because if you don't, it's gonna be ugly
yeah.
for
All right.
everybody.
Believe in
That's right.
yourself. Be intentional with your kids. Easy peasy. We can do this.
Sure. We
Yeah.
can do it. And we're not going
It
to be
is
perfect, and
helpful.
that's
Yeah.
okay. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And talk up the other parent. Instead of put downs, we say put ups.
Put ups.
Put ups.
Mm-hmm.
Make your kids think that you're happy that they spend time with their other parent, and um, that you want them to have that good relationship, because you do, because it's good for them, even though
Yeah.
you don't want it.
Yeah. Well, thank you
All
so
right.
much. I really appreciate your perspective on co-parenting and how we can gently go through this with our kids and be gentle on ourselves and support each other and show up for them. And I really feel like I was just going to say, it feels like you make it sound easy, but all of this is difficult. But the basic
Yeah.
things are that if you do these basic things, communicate, put up your other partner, support yourself, believe in yourself, get there, get the support you need to get to those spots. But, things are fall in line, and divorce does not have to be tragic for your kids. They can get
Absolutely.
through it and be whole and be amazing humans on the other side of it.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so
Thanks so much
much.
for having me, Tara.
Okay, I'm going to stop it.